Supernatural combat front. I wonder myself if this has anything to do with Tanzania. There's been whispers and rumors of something huge there, but honestly, between the Norway troll migration and Himalayan Yeti incursion, it'll just be nice to get shipped out somewhere warm. Suddenly, the door slams open, and Madame General Lukather storms in. "At ease, gentlemen," she says. "The undead shit has hit the fucking fan in Africa. We have reports of numerous infected tribes with a total target count being well above 100 of these ungodly creatures and growing fast. The Tanzanian army and local militias have managed to keep the horde at bay at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, but we are mere days away from a continent-wide epidemic. Now, First Lieutenant David Page will take the lead on this mission." I nod in response to the assignment. "You'll be running point," the general continued, "commanding a squad of the best and brightest soldiers the SCF has to offer, and the Vatican itself has been gracious enough to lend us their leading demonologist." She walks to the door and welcomes him in. "Soldiers, this is Cardinal Jeff Percaro." My stomach instantly sank at the sight of the statuesque, chestnut-skinned priest standing before us. "Thanks for having me," the Cardinal said, as he peered around the room and rested his eyes squarely on me. "Okay, you know your mission. Go get geared up," the general ordered. "You leave out at 1200 hours. Everyone stands up ready to leave, and I stop them. "All right, squad," I say in a rallying cry. "Let's go kill us some fucking vampires." This will be a breeze, I think to myself, sitting in the back of the dropship en route to the mission. The SCF has been battling monsters for 50 plus years, and we have the weaponry to handle any situation these bloodthirsty creatures can throw at us. Standard issue assault rifles with mahogany tipped bullets, UV grenades, and I hope I got a few of the new holy water claymores, I say as I open my bag and see a note from the general. "Lieutenant Page," it reads. "I got a surprise for you, Lieutenant. The R&R department has been working on a satellite-based ultraviolet laser system I think will come in handy with such a large horde of these demons. We call it the Total Obliteration of Terrestrial Organisms, or TOTO for short. Just use the included receiver to call in a strike on these bastards. It's a one-time use thing, so only use it as a last-ditch effort. Godspeed, Lieutenant." As I fold the note back up, I see Cardinal Percaro, and I'm instantly transported back to 15 years prior. Me and Porky, as I came to lovingly know him, served in the academy together. That was the hardest 10 months of my life, and I wouldn't have made it out if it wasn't for my best friend Porky having my bag. Honestly, he was more than my best friend. He was my first love, and I his. But at the time, and still to this day, that kind of thing wasn't taken too kindly to in the military. Him then going off into priesthood really solidified in my heart it just wasn't meant to be. But here we are now, brought back together by the scourge polluting the earth. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's fate. One thing I know for sure, I take having one Porky in the field than 50 SCF agents. I look up and he's standing in front of me. "Looking a little rough, old man," he says to me in a sweet voice. "You should see the other guys," I respond. He sits down and takes my hand in his. "It's great to see you, Dave. You never called." I give an unconvincing shrug before I can apologize. Porky starts talking. "David, I know you've been fighting these creatures for a decade now, but I've spent just as long studying them, and they're evolving. It used to be a newly infected wouldn't retain any prior knowledge of its life and skills. They were just animalistic monstrosities on a constant hunt to feed. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. I want you and your men to be prepared, and I couldn't live with myself if something were to happen to you. These vampires were warrior tribesmen and women. They know the land. They know how to hunt and trap, and we've observed them working in unison to take down prey. The scariest part is some of them have mutated to be UV tolerant. It's really fascinating, albeit terrifying stuff. Appreciate the intel, pal," I say to him in a reassuring tone. "We'll be ever vigilant out there." "I pray you do," says Porky, "for both our sakes." The plane lands in an airfield amidst the early evening hours of the African Serengeti. Ground support General Hungate greets me as I hear drums echo in the night. His men are talking, but I only hear whispers of a quiet conversation. The plane takes off, and the stars reflect upon the wings almost as if they were a guidance towards salvation. "The situation is not good, Lieutenant," General Hungate reports. "We've lost 30 men today alone. We've kept them at bay the past few nights by herding water buffalo and elephants into the quarantine zone but they seem to want tastier offerings. There's a forward operating base 2 clicks northeast of here. I suggest we head there post-haste before nightfall so as not to become next on the menu. I unstrap my assault rifle and cock it. I'll give them a taste of this, General, see how they like that. As I headed to the Humvees waiting nearby, I passed an old man along the way. He turned to me as if to say, "Hurry, boy, they're waiting there for you." "Porky, you're with me," I shout to the priest, who might not be as geared up as the rest of us, but looks more ready than the whole squadron. "The rest of you load up and move out." Sitting in the back of the Humvee with Porky, I jokingly hand him a water bottle and ask him to bless it. Just in case, you know. I chuckled to him, but it wasn't a laughing matter to him. "You know, holy water," he says, "is the #1 most effective method to dispatching these monsters. I'd be glad to." He then starts speaking in Latin, and as he goes to hand me the water bottle back, the convoy stops. "I start," I radio my team. "What's with the holdup?" I ask the driver. "There's a fork in the road. We're calling it in which way to go." "Typical military miscommunication," I say to him. As I sit back in my seat, I notice right at the fork, 2 glowing red eyes slowly make their way out of the tall savanna grass, staring, calculating, like a devil at the crossroads. "Let me handle this," I say with confidence. As I go to open the door, the driver stops me. "I wouldn't do that if I was you. Where there's one of these creatures, there are sure to be many more." As I let go of the door handle, I hear rifle fire from the rear. Before I can react, the Humvee gets flipped over and I black out. I awaken to absolute chaos. Porky is slapping me awake as my men are sending a hellstorm of bullets in every direction. Bits and pieces of Hungate's men strewn about as if they were fed into a wood chipper. A vampire leaps onto our overturned transport and snarls at me with razor-sharp teeth bared like a great white shark. It makes a dive at one of the soldiers, and I pull out my sidearm and send a mahogany-tipped bullet straight through its heart, and it disintegrates in a cloud of dust. "What's the situation?" I shouted to a private. "We've been outflanked from all quadrants. It's almost as if they coordinated this attack. I've never seen anything like it before, sir." "We've got at least 50 bogies and more incoming, sir. We need to evacuate, pronto." "What's the transport situation looking like, soldier?" I asked. Negative, sir. They took out the convoy. We're on foot and totally fucked here, Lieutenant." I take a second to gather my composure. "Okay, troops, new plan. We move as one unit to the FOB. Eyes in every direction. You see even a glint of fangs, you unload into that motherfucker and we keep going. Understood?" "Yes, sir," they all reply in unison. "Let's roll out." As we make our way through the dense African landscape, I hear the wild dogs cry out in the night as they grow restless looking for some solitary company. I look at Porky and I know I must do what's right, protect him at all costs. We came around a bend and could see the camp in the distance. Then it came. A low, guttural growling of maybe 15 enemies. It sounded like it's coming from every direction. Then, like a wave of darkness, they strike, leaping down from the trees, clawing the men like demonic leopards and jumping back up. The area gets lit up with gunfire as I shout, "Flash!" and toss a UV grenade that vaporizes 5 vampires at once. "Status," I shout, 2 KIA, 1 MIA. "Damn it," I scream, down to 5 men. As I go to reload, I feel a sharp pain in my hip, like butcher knives penetrating my flesh, and got dragged away into the underbrush. "David!" screams Porky as he's unable to reach me in time. I soon find myself face to face with 10 Zulu warrior vampires, all gathered around me ready to feast. As they snap and snarl towards me, I slowly pull out my water bottle and take a hearty swig. Then right as the beasts move in for the kill, I spew it forth from my lips, sending out a misting of holy water that vaporizes the motherfuckers in an instant. I make my way through the dense foliage, hoping to reach the camp, and pray that the team has made it there as well. I hear voices ahead and jump out with my gun drawn to see Porky and one other soldier. Porky immediately embraces me. "I thought you were dead," he says with tears welling up in his eyes. I respond, "It's going to take a lot to drag me away from you. It's nothing that 100 of these creatures or more could ever do." As we reached the camp, an idea struck me. I pulled Porky aside and told him about using the holy water to escape, and asked him if it's possible to bless the rain. "In theory it is," he replies, "but what you really need to do is bless a water source that would then evaporate and form a rain cloud. And that's just damn near impossible here in the middle of drought season." "You're all I got left out here, Porkster," I said to him as we reached the medic tent. "I got a secret weapon, and I think it will turn the tide in this battle." I explained my plan to him as I'm getting bandaged up, and he's looking at me in total disbelief. "Trust me, Porky, nothing is impossible," as I say, as I take his hand in mine, "when love is on the line." We're about halfway there, Porky. How you doing? I asked my companion as we scale our way to the zenith of Mount Kilimanjaro. Great, he says, considering we haven't seen any of those creatures since we started the climb. I'm not 100% sure this plan will work, David, he retorts. Sure it will, buddy, I respond. The top of Mount Kilimanjaro is all glaciers. You just do your magic and bless the ice caps. I call down a Toto strike that evaporates the caps, forms a rain cloud, and boom, liquid death raining down that'll paint the landscape with these assholes. But how do you know they'll all be in one place at the same time, Porky asks. Simple, I responded. I stole about 10 liters of blood from the medical tent. I've been leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, if you will, all the way up the mountain. They'll be here. Before I can continue, I heard some rock shifting on the volcanic slopes. I hand Porky my sidearm. I detest guns, he says. I nudge it towards him again. For me, I ask. Okay, he responds. We make our way to the summit, and as horrific as the night has been, it's oddly peaceful on the mountaintop. This is the second clearest I've ever seen the stars, I say to him. Second, he asks confusingly. Well, number one being the first time I ever laid eyes on you, Percaro, I reply with a wink. Porky blushed and made his way toward me for what I thought was a hug. Porky blushed and made his way toward me for what I hoped was a hug, and out of nowhere there was a growl and a scream, and I targeted that undead bitch with such precision it was dead before the bullet penetrated his ribcage. I rushed over to my friend. Are you okay, Porks? My heart sank as he responded, No, I got bit. As Porky goes about blessing the ice caps, I can't help but feel guilty. My poor leadership caused him to eventually become that which I've devoted my life to eradicating. Porky turns to me. It's not your fault, you know, he says. I knew the risks involved in taking this assignment, and even if it's my last mission, I'm glad I got to spend it with you. Besides, as a demonologist, I can seek to cure what's deep inside, even though I'm frightened of this thing that I'll become. If anyone can do it, I responded, it's you, Porky. I've always hated that nickname, he says to me. Okay then, Jeff, let's end this and get you taken care of, baby. I think that should do it. Calling the strike, Jeff says as he takes me by the hand. I pull out the receiver and target the mountaintop. It's going to be bright, so shield your eyes. I call in the Toto strike, and a piercing blue beam of concentrated UV light comes rocketing down to Earth like a science fiction superweapon. As the countryside gets lit up, I see hundreds of monstrous creatures scaling the summit of the mountain. A whoosh of steam takes over us and rises to the sky like a benevolent god usurping his throne of Kilimanjaro. As the thunder starts rolling and the clouds begin to swirl, I take Jeff by the hand. We need to get you away from here. It'll kill you, and I cannot lose you again. It's going to take a lot to drag me away from you too, he replies as he wraps me in a warm embrace. It's nothing that 100 men or more could ever do, he continues as he stares at me with his deep emerald green eyes. As the first few drops of rain start falling, he says to me, I bless the rains down in Africa. Now it's time to do the things they never did. I lean in and tenderly lay my lips upon his with the sound of hundreds of undead creatures writhing in deathly throes and agony. I pull back to gaze upon my soul's reflection in this brave man. I love you, David, he says, and as I go in for one more kiss, my lips fail to connect, and I'm met by the sight of nothing, ash in my hands, alone atop the mountain. I fall to my knees and radio for evac.